I see Danny live. How do we sound, Danny, out in Southern California? All right, welcome back. Can you hear me out there, Mr. Eddie? Sounds good. All right, welcome back to Sacramento UFO Conference 2012, broadcasting live in 103, 104, 105 weather. I'm from Fresno. I should be used to it, but I'm never used to this heat. I'm dying. So, all right, we are here with David Weatherly, and we're going to talk about his latest book, The Black Eye Children. And if you look at the cover, why don't you zoom in on that cover and scare the crap out of people? Because I tell you, that would do it for me at nighttime, getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, seeing something like that. There you go. David, how's it going?
Great, man. Thanks for having me here.
Hey, not a problem at all. Glad you could stop by and let's chat for a while. Paranormal. Tell me about yourself. For the people out there who don't know who you are, let's give them a description of what you've done in the past and go from there.
Brief bio. I got interested in the paranormal when I was a kid. I've been actively investigating for over 35 years now. So out in the field and doing the research along with that whole spectrum of the paranormal, because when I got involved with it, you said paranormal and people knew it wasn't just haunted sites, it was the whole spectrum. So everything from ghosts to cryptids to ufology and the whole spectrum. And that's where I am now.
So where are you're from? Where do you live?
I currently live in Arizona.
Arizona, right? Okay. There's a spot out there, I think. I mean, when you came, I mean, I've known about you for a long time. What is your main love, though? And I know we were just talking about the X-Files. So that we can go there.
We bonded already with that.
We can talk about that all. We can talk about that all afternoon. But we're not going to piss people off. So well. All right. You have your crypto. You have your UFO. Your ghosto. I mean, what is your most favorite one to go after?
Wow. Over time it kind of shifts back and forth, but actually what it's become the last few years are what I consider paranormal hotspots. These beds of activity that exhibit UFO sightings, cryptids, the whole spectrum, because, you can get me on a rant about this. One of the things that I have an issue with is that over the years, all this political, I'm trying to think of how to say this in a kind way.
Hey, we're on the internet, so it doesn't matter.
Cool. All these political agendas have crept in, and they've really screwed up paranormal investigation to some terms. You've got UFO groups that don't want to hear anything to do with Bigfoot. You've got Bigfoot organizations that don't want anything to do with this aspect. That's bullshit. We've got to look at this from a holistic perspective and understand that there's an incredible level of activity. Why? Why are there cryptids showing up where there are a rash of UFO sightings and where there are haunted sites? There's a reason for that, and that's what we need to explore even more.
Exactly. And you were a while back we were talking about the night crawlers.
Oh yeah,
dude, the night crawlers of Fresno. And I totally agree with you, because Fresno is just what you were talking about. Mm-hmm. You have your Bigfoot, your UFOs, your night crawlers, your ghost. Now we're talking, things with large wings flying over Fresno too. We're Mothman.
Right.
That, and the more we talk about it and get it out there, then the people are going to know who you are, and then they're going to think, okay, I need to go tell somebody my story, because they're going to you're not going to laugh at somebody who comes at you and say, hey, I saw something last week, I need to tell you about it.
Exactly, and that's an issue, because I've investigated cases where the people were embarrassed to tell all the facts because they didn't want to say that, yeah, I saw a Bigfoot, but there was a UFO in the sky that got my attention to begin with. They're terrified that they're going to be laughed at.
Exactly.
And depending on who you are and who what kind of culture they've been raised in, some of these things are acceptable. They can say, okay, well, I saw this creature, I don't know what it is, maybe it was a bear, upright bear, but I just want to know what it was. But to start talking about lights in the sky, then that's taboo, and that's a whole different level they don't want to go to.
Right. Now, have you had a lot of reports where Bigfoot and UFOs are in the same
there are a surprising number of them. And what I found was when I started looking at that a lot of them are swept under the rug. You send a UFO report to MUFON and you say you saw a Bigfoot at the same time, they're not interested. The Bigfoot people think you're, it's a flying saucer nut. We don't want to hear that Bigfoot report. And it's a shame, and there's a lot of valuable data out there that people like us, I'm thinking, gosh, there's two of us. We get one more, we can form a new lone gunman, right?
Dude, I like it. I love it, man. I totally agree with you. That's one of the reasons why I left MUFON.
Yeah.
I used to be in MUFON for 2 years. And they did not want to hear about the other stuff I was doing. On this show, they would not allow me to talk about UFOs along with the Bigfoot stuff.
Right.
So I said, you know what? See ya. So that's where I am with that. It taught me a great deal about investigating UFOs, granted. But I'm with you at that. I think everything is somehow interconnected, and I always go back to that show on Sci-Fi, Eureka.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And Fresno is there, and I'm sure where you live, I'm sure there's spots over there that everything is there's a lot of stuff going on. And why? Ley lines, wormholes, portals of some type, high energy fields, military underground bases. There's a lot of stuff to look at, and then when you finally open up your eyes a little bit, which I have done in Fresno, I have noticed things that were right in front of me, and now I'm going, well, maybe there is something here only because there is a lot of military, and they're here for a reason. In your side, where you have investigated, you're telling me all this is happening, is there a heavy military presence in that area as well?
I've looked at a number of hot spots. I've done a lot of investigation in the Uinta Basin of Utah, which is most known for having Skinwalker Ranch sort of at the center of it. Now, the basin itself is a pretty large area, and what you find there is a lot of locations that are haunted, a lot of cryptid reports, and of course a massive number of UFO encounters, along with all the strange lore revolving around Skinwalker Ranch. But one of the things that's happening is that there are a lot more of these hot spots around the country and around the world than I think people realize.
Exactly.
And there are two things happening. One is that people are probing around a little bit more and trying to find this information. And two, there are more reports coming out. Some of my recent work has been in the Superstition Mountains of Arizona. And you talk about a weird location. This is renowned for being the location of the Lost Dutchman's gold mine. So right there we've got lost treasure with a ton of strange, synchronicities and weird mysteries surrounding that. But going back to Native American lore.
I was going to say Indians, Native Americans.
I've talked to a lot of Native American people, and there are all these weird reports of these creatures that live underground in the superstitions. There are cave openings that appear and disappear.
The creatures, reptilians maybe?
Reptilians. Let me tell you, I haven't talked about this much. This is a very recent case, and I can give some details. I had a woman that contacted me recently, and she was driving on a highway in Arizona, south of the Superstition Mountains. Now, she lives in the region. The Superstition Mountains, for anyone who doesn't know, it has a very distinctive silhouette. She was far away from the mountains, but she was driving on the highway at night. Her car suddenly just died. She was able to coast off to the side of the road. The next thing she remembers is seeing a disc with multicolored lights in the sky over her car. She blacked out. She came to, feeling the heels of her feet being dragged across the desert. She saw the Superstition Mountains in the distance. She saw a reptilian creature holding her by her arms. It looked at her. She blacked out a second time. When she came to again, now she's at the entrance to a cave, and there are now two of these creatures that are reptilian humanoid forms. They look at her, she blacks out again. The next thing she remembers is waking up in her car.
I've heard the reptilians are not the friendliest type of aliens on what we have here, if you believe in that or not. I've even heard as far as they could have probably eaten that person up. That's what I've heard.
Well, there's a lot of native lore that indicates that these creatures live underground and that they do indeed attempt to lure people in, and the people disappear. They're never heard from again.
And that's what's going on in the Yosemite National Park.
Exactly.
You know, and you know, we're trying to figure out, okay, is it Bigfoot or is it something else? And you know, David Paulides' book Missing 411, when we got into it, is like, you know, I don't know. You know, at first I thought, okay, it could be just Bigfoot, but there's something else going on because there's a lot of UFO sightings up there as well. So it's like, I don't know. And
Right.
it's nowadays it's scary to go camping. I mean, like for example, the night crawlers. I guess the names for night crawlers. You know, you were telling me somewhere in Arizona there's something else going on over there that's similar creatures over here. You know, that's totally news to me when you blew me out of the water with that. And we're not going to really tell, you know, because you know this is a new case for you, but these creatures, whatever they are, and we have all kinds of stuff going on, and how we are finding out is just by accident, because security camera, you know, that's how
Right.
they, you know, what the hell is happening when we're asleep and everybody's asleep?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and you know, a lot of times my sky watches are out from 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning. That's when all this stuff happens. So when you go out and investigate, you know, when you get a call, do you actually physically go out and spend a great deal of time at that particular location? Like if it's a Bigfoot or a creature, I mean.
Absolutely, I do. To be honest, I tried very hard to first really vet all that information first. Usually try to have multiple conversations with the person and get the details. I like to get the details in email if possible, so that I can really go over the account and, as you know, hear it multiple times and get a vibe for the person,
Right.
especially if it's a location that's far away.
Because you don't know if they actually saw what they thought they saw.
Right.
You know, and
Exactly.
you could lose valuable time going all the way out there, spending all kind of your own personal money, and then finding out it was a freaking dog that she saw, and there it
Exactly.
is, and then it would just. And I totally agree. So you have to really drill them in a way over the phone,
Yeah.
and find. And sometimes it's hard. You know, it hurts because, you know, you need to get all the facts, and sometimes these people who you're interviewing, you know, they're in a lineup for the FBI or something, but you know, we have to do that.
That's
You know,
true.
You know, you have to.
And I think, you know, being in the field so long, to a certain level, you reach a point where you can often tell in the first few minutes.
Sure.
I mean, I find that from my personal experience.
I think you're right on that.
Then you just have to push it a little bit more and start factoring in the other aspects. You know, well, what was going on? If it's a UFO sighting, you know, was there a meteor shower? Is there military aircraft in the area? You know, look at all the different aspects. You know, if it's a cryptid, what are the animals that are native to the region? You know, have there been any other strange reports? It's one of the first things I often look at is, okay, we've got this really weird report. What else is going on in that area? Is it some kind of a hotbed, or is it an area that gets a lot of Bigfoot sightings? Or, you know, you have to do that because, like you're saying, it's our time and money. And, you know, I get so many people contacting me that I really have to narrow it down and focus on the ones that do have some good potential.
Facebook, social media. I'm sure you have a website. You know, what is the number one best way people get a hold of you? To me, lately, it's been like Facebook.
Yeah, the best point of contact at the moment for me is I've got a blog. It's twocrowsparanormal.blogspot.com. Spell out the two, T-W-O, Two Crows. And there's a badge on there for my Facebook. I welcome people to friend me on Facebook. I've got a Twitter feed. Everything else links right from there. And that's a place that I try to post some of the current accounts that come in on some of these cases that I'm working on. And of course, if you know, Facebook, like you're saying, it's the easiest thing right now.
It's the easiest thing.
Yeah.
What is the last coolest case you've worked on where you actually found some killer evidence?
I've had some good haunted sites, but the one that springs to mind, I don't know if I'd say I found killer evidence, but it in the Uinta Basin of Utah. I was called in, spoke to these people a number of times. They believed that their house was haunted by a poltergeist because they were having some really wild activity going on in the house, objects moving and so forth. I went into it thinking initially it was a poltergeist, potential poltergeist case. However, when I got there and had several dialogues with these people, I began to realize there was something much more going on, because the father finally admitted to me that he had seen a strange creature in the backyard of his house, and that what he witnessed was a wolf that was bipedal. Now, the case became more complicated because we ended up, I put some trail cams out on the cameras, trail cams out on the trees, which disappeared. There was no evidence that straps had been cut or anything. It just vanished. We found out that every time this wolf-like creature would appear around their house, the activity within the house would follow. So poltergeist activity in the house after the sighting of a strange bipedal wolf-like creature. Now, this gentleman calls me one night, 2 a.m., and says, you've got to get over here. There's all this noise. This thing was on the roof of their house, walking back and forth, back and forth. And right after that, the level of activity in their house, again, really kicked up. You know, we did, initially went in and did some EVPs, electronic voice phenomena recordings, and we were getting all these strange noises. This is in the house, growls, and what a lot of people would assume was some kind of demonic energy or entity communicating. I didn't believe that's what it was. I think it was somehow connected, obviously, to this creature that was appearing. The family was... They were absolutely terrified at this point. He had kids, and he wanted to make sure his family was protected. And you know, they finally moved out of the house, so we haven't been able to do a whole lot more with that case. But it's a very strange thing. It's something we're still studying, and there are other areas. Again, that's in the Uinta Basin. There are other cases in that area that are very similar.
So he actually saw a wolf-like creature walking on two legs.
Yeah, he did.
Wow. I mean, that's something to where in Fresno or in our areas, you know, the wolf man is not even, you know, that hasn't even been brought up. That's actually very cool.
Yeah, it falls within the spectrum of the wolf man, or the dog man, as some people call it.
Right.
And it harkens back to some of the classic accounts from Skinwalker Ranch about this bulletproof wolf and this weird wolf-like creature that, you know, manifested to some of the people there.
I mean, can you hear us talking right now about these monsters? I mean, 30 years, well, actually 30 years you started, but I mean, seriously, we're actually talking about freaking monsters.
Well, and then again, here's something else, Jeff. We go back to that region, the native lore, skinwalkers. You know, people that are practicing what they call witchcraft, dark magic, in order to shapeshift into a wolf or coyote or dog-like creature in order to work magic or do, you know, whatever their sinister purpose is.
And let's talk about now the shows that are on TV, like True Blood.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you have, you know, the vampire movies and The Walking Dead. You know, I think that there's a reason those are on TV. I personally think that they're either trying to condition us maybe a little bit, but I think more people are now accepting the fact that maybe this stuff is real.
And not only are they on television, but they're immensely popular. True Blood and Walking Dead are incredibly popular.
See that blonde girl over there, my wife? She's a True Blood freak and a vampire freak.
So
you're right.
These things are speaking to people, you know, at a deeper level, and we have to question why. Why now? What's the correlation?
I don't know. I see where you're coming from. I mean, this stuff is so popular. I mean, zombies.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? People dig this stuff, and you know, and I think that people realize that, and in their hearts, they know that some of this stuff is for real, and I think they're liking the vampires and the werewolves and the True Bloods, is because this is their way of telling everybody, you know, I believe in this stuff. I think it's for real. Actually, not coming out and say it right up to somebody's face, but if they like the True Blood, the vampires, or whatever, then they're saying, you know, there's a good possibility this stuff is for real. The black-eyed children. What the hell is that? What? I mean, are you trying to give people nightmares or what?
This is one of the creepiest phenomena that I've encountered in all my years of investigating these things. And not only is it creepy, it crosses all the boundaries that we're talking about. To give a brief description, these are children that are showing up on people's doorsteps. They're showing up at cars and parking lots, places of work. I've got an account of one showing up at a yacht.
Wait, during the daytime or night, or the nighttime?
The bulk of the encounters take place right as the sun is going down, so it's still light out.
Okay.
So people are getting a very clear account, a very clear picture of these kids. And what's happening is the most often what we hear for an age range is from 8 to 13 years old. It appears to be a human child, except for the fact that the eyes are solid black. Not just the pupil, the entire sclera, pupil, everything, solid black, just like you would see with the common depiction of the grays.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, the skin is usually described as either being pale and pasty. Some people describe it as looking artificial. So there's always a strange appearance to the skin. And here's something, I do very detailed interviews of these accounts.
Okay.
No one ever sees a blemish on the skin. Never seen a freckle, a mole, any kind of a scar. These are teenage kids. Why no pimples? Nothing. There's never a blemish on the skin. These kids show up. They never use doorbells. It's always a knock. You hear this long, steady knock that just persists until the door is answered. They insist on being invited in. They don't intrude. They ask for an invitation. So you're talking about vampires. We're into classic vampire lore.
I was going to say that they cannot enter that front door unless they are invited in.
We're into classic vampire and demon lore. But here's another weird thing. They attempt. A lot of people believe these kids are attempting mind control. They speak in a monotone fashion. They repeat the same phrases over and over again. If you try to engage them and ask them questions and interact, they just default back to saying the same phrase again. Well, just invite us in. This won't take long.
Children of the Corn? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's like right there.
Well, honestly, when I first heard about these accounts, it was in the late 90s, and there were a couple of accounts on the internet. It seemed initially like this could be an urban myth. So it was compelling, it was interesting, but I kind of set it aside. Then I met a gentleman, total skeptic on the surface, but he had had an encounter with these kids. And this was a guy, he's detailed pretty thoroughly in the book, 6'3", bodybuilder, martial artist, prison guard. Not a man used to feeling fear. He had seen people shanked in prison, brawls, everything you can think of. He met these two kids. These two kids showed up on his doorstep. They tried to convince him to invite them in, and he experienced fear, complete fear. And that's another common factor in these encounters, is people start engaging these kids, and what happens is that the victim grows more and more nervous until they reach a state of panic and they have to run away. They slam the door, they drive away, whatever the conditions are. They just have to get away from these kids. And, they end up afterwards, these people are essentially trauma victims.
Is there a correlation between these people that are getting visited by these children? I mean, is there like you mentioned a guard at 6'3", bodybuilder? Are they people who are very fit and...
No. I always look for the patterns. I know where you're going with this. I always look for the patterns in these things. There are very, very few patterns. There's no commonalities in religious belief. There's no commonalities in race, age, nothing. One of the few commonalities I've found is that there is an unusual number of people who have encountered these kids, and these people are in positions of authority. So I have a lot of accounts from law enforcement, military, government employees. For some reason, a lot of the victims of these encounters have some position of authority in their day-to-day work.
Why?
That's a good question. It honestly is. I'm looking at a lot of different factors. I mean, those are all high-stress jobs.
Uh-huh.
Those are jobs that are very oriented towards service to some degree. So you start looking at all these correlations, but none of it necessarily makes sense yet. What's interesting to me is that a lot of these people, military and law enforcement, these are trained observers. And they're also often conditioned not to
be afraid.
Not to respond in an emotionally reactive way. But damn, that's what happens.
It sounds to me like it's an experiment. will these kids scare anybody that they come across? You know, is it all right? You know, 300-pound big bodybuilder guy. I'm 3 feet tall with black eyes. Am I scaring you enough to run away? You know, that's what to me it sounds like. You know, that's like somebody's doing an experiment someplace.
It does reek of being experimental to some degree. You know, there are commonalities with these kids and the Men in Black. For instance, a lot of people strongly believe that these kids are alien hybrids, and that they're trying to learn how to interact with people. But you're right. Not many people pick up on that, but it does reek of something experimental to me too, because they come in, they create these conditions, and then they vanish. You know, I mean, we've got people law enforcement that, you know, turns his head this long and looks back, and the kids are gone. Yeah. So, you know, it almost indicates that they have some kind of interdimensional abilities to me. Wow. So, you know, whatever they're trying to accomplish, obviously if they're attempting mind control, they haven't quite perfected it yet, because none of these people really fall under the spell. You know, they're able to break it off to some degree, enough to get away from these kids.
So they're there long enough to do something, and then if it doesn't work, well, they're gone. I mean, you know, I see what you're saying. You know, the mind control. Are they really frightened? Wow. Now, since you mentioned Men in Black, has any of those type of persons or people appear anywhere near the black-eyed children, or have been seen, or any like cars parked out down the street, any black vehicles, you know what I'm saying?
No.
Nothing?
Not that I have been able to find. But there's some really odd things that have come in. You know, there's some indications recently that these kids have some kind of a connection to causing electronic interference.
That's a whole different area.
That's a whole different spectrum. But again, it reaches back to the Men in Black.
Wow.
I mean, I can tell you, you know, some really weird things have happened just since the book has come out in conjunction with that.
What's that?
Well, I'll tell you how this started. The book was out probably for a month or so, and I got this email from this woman, and she said, I don't want you to think I'm crazy. I just want to know if this has ever happened before. But here's what happened. I started reading your book, and the smoke alarm in my house went off. I had to unplug it. No big deal, right? One odd thing. Second time she starts reading the book, the timer on her stove goes off. She says, I never used that thing. I didn't even know what it sounded like. The third time she sits down to read the book, her garage door opens itself. That was enough to figure her out. She says, look, I'm interested in this phenomena, but I don't want any visits by these kids. So if this is happening anywhere else, please let me know. Well, I started getting a number of these accounts of people who were interested in the phenomena and were having weird electronic things go on. I got a call on my cell phone one day. I answered it. There's just background noise, and it's a number I recognized from a friend of mine. And I thought, oh, well, he just pocket dialed or something. Well, this happened several times. And every time, whether I answer or whether it's just a message, I'm getting all this background noise. And finally, I thought, well, you know, I sent him a message. I said, hey, man, I think maybe your kid is getting hold of your phone and dialing my number. He apologizes. He says, oh, I'm really sorry. A couple nights later, he's sitting on his bed. His phone is beside him. He's reading the Black-Eyed Kids. Out of his peripheral vision, his phone lights up. He looks at it. It's dialing my number. And it totally flipped him out. He runs over. He runs over to. Yeah, this is probably not the best advertising to sell the book, is it? But
stay right where you're at, right? I mean, dude, you're scaring me, man. I'm scared. All we need to do is that light bulb to go pop, dude. You're out of here. Man, I mean, that is, you know, I've heard of the black-eyed children, but, you know, I never knew all this that you just told me about. You know, that's just, this is something totally new to me.
It's very complex, and it, like I said, it really crosses the spectrum of the paranormal. I mean, there are correlations with the whole spectrum. I mean, demons, alien hybrids, tricksters, ghosts. Just it runs the whole gamut, and we just don't know. It could be any of those. They could be tulpas, which are a type of thought form, being projected from the consciousness somehow. Because one of the things I found, one of the few other correlations I have found with people who have these encounters is that an extremely large portion of them, after the encounter, become more spiritual. they go back to the religion they were raised in, or they seek out a new religion. And there's no commonalities in that either. It's everywhere from Judaism to becoming, more devout Catholics or what. They're looking for comfort. They're looking for something that gives them that.
So it scared them. It scared them that much.
It scared them.
It scared them big time to go do that.
It literally changes their lives.
Wow. Yeah, that would. I mean, I'm a Catholic already, so it would. I shut the door and say my Hail Marys and the whole. That would scare me.
Yeah. Oh, you'd probably be doing some extra rosaries if you saw these things.
I think so. I would call a priest like there and then. So, wow. So what's next on your agenda? I mean, I know that just like me investigating. We're not going to stop until we can't walk anymore.
That's
that's just the way it is. Your love is it? I mean, your love is just like what I enjoy doing. I mean, we're like kids in a candy store.
Oh yeah.
And it looks like you're married, so I hope your wife. And it looked like she's allowing you, just like my wife. She totally digs what I'm doing as well.
Absolutely.
And. Yeah, I mean, I'm like you said, I'm enjoying the hell out of this.
Oh my God, I love it. Like I said, my whole life exploring this stuff, and to me, it doesn't get old. Every new case is something new,
different.
And it's intriguing, and I don't think I'll ever lose my enthusiasm for it. And tons of projects in the works. I've got another book coming out this year on tulpas and thought forms. We touched on that just for a moment, and. Couple of other projects in the works beyond that, maybe some video work. So
sweet. Are we gonna see it on TV anytime soon? Or?
No, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, same here. Who knows? The way things are going, type of shows, reality shows, documentaries. I mean, they're popping up left and right on the networks, on the cable networks. Why? Because people watch them.
Exactly.
And another reason too is they're not that expensive to do.
Well, and here's something else that excites me about the paranormal shows. They get a lot of grief.
Yeah.
And I kind of see both sides of that coin. On the one hand, there is a glut of paranormal shows on television the last couple of years, and it has bred a lot of people that run out and buy a recorder and think they're a ghost hunter.
Right.
On the other hand, on the positive side, it's made people more comfortable with talking about these topics. I mean, my God, it was like pulling teeth when I first got involved in these fields, and people did not want to talk about it. So what I'm seeing is a transformation now where I think some of the newer shows that are going to come up, they're going to tap people who actually have the background, who aren't just actors, who are actually out there doing the work and have an investigative background in this field and know their research.
Yes.
Rather than just somebody the studio got because, hey, you look like a photography expert. That's what we're going to make you.
Yeah, I totally agree because there are shows coming out right now that are like that, and I think it's going to keep on. There's going to be a lot more shows on TV. I guarantee it. I guarantee it because it sells. This stuff sells.
I hope so.
Yeah, it does.
I hope so. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. I mean, like I said, we love what we're doing, and we are not going to stop what we're doing. And there you go. So
I'm thinking 2013, the new Lone Gunman.
Dude, I am all over that. I am all over that. That's like a freaking. We'll talk about it later on. David.
Hey, dude.
Thank you very much.
It's been great, man.
It's been great. Remember I told you I was going to do that happy dance maybe tonight? Give me
After a few beers, right?
Exactly. So, all right, that was David Weatherly. Where can they get your book?
LeprechaunPress.com.
LeprechaunPress.com.
Those are signed copies, and of course it's on Amazon too.
Amazon too, sweet. Dude, go and buy this book, and the next time the TV turns on, or by itself, or the blender turns on, call up David and cuss him out. Because it's his fault. All right. Appreciate you coming on, David. Thanks a lot, man. All right. Black-eyed children, if you want to have nightmares, do it to it. Because I'm not going to I'm not reading it. Maybe trust me, I won't. Catch you later, David. All right, guys.
Thanks, man.
We are here at the Sacramento UFO Conference 2012 with David Weatherly and his book, The Black-Eyed Children That Gives You Nightmares. Peace out. We will be back on in about probably half an hour with somebody else. Stay tuned. All right, dude. Look at that. Is he going to do the happy dance? People are already asking me because people know. It's like, remember we were talking about it. So.